Africa is young, Africa is connected, and increasingly online. Social media has expanded civic participation, activism, and political engagement, especially for women. But those same spaces are now being weaponized. During elections, for example, online abuse intensifies. Female candidates are targeted with misinformation, sexualized attacks, and threats. Journalists are harassed into silence. Activists are surveilled and stalked. Now, despite global frameworks, many African countries still do not clearly define digital violence in law. Where laws exist, enforcement is weak. Tech platforms remain slow to act, while misogynistic networks grow louder, amplified by algorithms and artificial intelligence. The result is a shrinking digital civic space for women and for girls. The central question is, can Africa build digital spaces that protect participation, safeguard democracy, and uphold women's rights beyond symbolic campaigns? It's not just about to be a monologue. This is a very important conversation. And of course, we have amazing guests to help us unpack this development. So joining us today, we have Kauna Malgwi, a clinical psychologist and the CEO DRMHI in Nairobi, Kenya. Kauna, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Blessing, for having me.
All right, an absolute pleasure. We also have joining us Merlize Jogiath, advocate and operations coordinator, Women for Change in Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you so much, Merlize, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
An absolute pleasure. And then we also have Adéfoiye Monsurat, data analyst member of the Hope Makers Network, Lagos, Nigeria. Monsurat, thank you so much for joining us. All right, it's a ladies' affair, and I think it's quite intentional because of the sensitivity of the conversation. And thank you so much once again, ladies, for being here. Let's just go straight into the conversation. I'm going to start with Kauna. Now, digital violence is often dismissed as it's just online. It doesn't go beyond online because of the word digital. But how serious is its real-world impact on women and girls, especially?
Thank you, Blessing, once again for having me. I think it's a great opportunity to be here and also to talk about this very important topic. The conversation of digital violence, as we've done throughout the 16 days of activism, should actually go beyond this because of how serious it is when it comes to how it affects women and children. And we talk about the mental health challenges and the mental health illnesses that can be also gotten to the very extreme end when it comes to this kind of contents, and also the violence and the harms that women and children experience while using these digital platforms and also social media in general, which is most accessible to even the least or the smallest kid that you can see around. And the mental health illnesses we can talk about stems from depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, imposter syndrome. Just mention a lot of them that can be acquired while engaging on these digital platforms, and also the kind of harassment. And most of the harassment will come from the exposures, mostly the girls who doesn't even know that once I share anything online, it can be used against me. It can be used to access even my loved ones, especially when it comes to tagging of your family members. This is usually used as an opportunity to exploit and also put children and women, especially girls, in harm's way.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Kauna. Let me come to Merlize now. Let's even talk about the forms of digital abuse that are most prevalent across African countries, that we see a lot on the African continent in terms of gender digital abuse today. What are those digital abuses that are most prevalent in Africa?
Revenge porn. Revenge porn has taken off quite significantly in the last couple of years with the access and easy access to social media. Young girls under the age of 15 are being targeted every single day, and there are no real controls in place to protect these young girls. Specifically, apps like WhatsApp that information is able to be shared, and it's very difficult to detect because there are no real ways to prevent it from being sent and distributed. There are laws in place. However, as you said in the beginning, implementation is where the failure is. Every single day we are talking to very young girls who don't know how to prevent their images from being distributed nationally and internationally. That is top of the cases that we deal with, but I think one of the other things we need to consider is online harassment on social media and using platforms like WhatsApp for abuse victims. That is the primary source of emotional abuse that's coming through from survivors, ex-partners. And just before women are actually killed in abusive relationships, you can actually track down how social media and WhatsApp is used to both manipulate, confuse, and emotionally and mentally abuse the victims. So it's too accessible. I think there are no real protections in place, and it's very difficult to detect, on top of the fact that law enforcement doesn't have the financial resources to follow through these cases from a digital platform's perspective.
Okay. Thank you for that, Merlize. Now, let me come to Monsurat. Why do you think women with public visibility, like journalists, like politicians, activists, are disproportionately targeted? We're not saying other women are not targeted, but it seems like these are the women that are most on the radar of digital abusers.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you so much. If I get you correctly, you're asking why women in the public spaces are more targeted.
Yes, women in public spaces, in public offices, yes.
Now, the thing is, with my own experience, I'll be speaking from my own experience, it has come to observations that women in public spaces are more targeted because for the society, or let's say the world at large, women are being seen as second-class citizens. So if a woman is opportuned to be able to climb that ladder, despite the challenges that comes with it as a woman, it tends to give these perpetrators the more reason to go for them, because they try to find every way or every opportunity to take them down. So they are easy targets because their face is all over the world. We tend to see them, we tend to get more information about them, and it is just a silence tactic because they know these women are the force that the world needs. We need strong women amongst us that will be able to push to fight for us. So these women are the ones they go for because they need to silence them so that they wouldn't be able to talk about it or go further or help erase it. That's it.
All right, thanks for that. Let me come back to Kauna now. How do you think that online harassment, because we did mention earlier that people think that this stops on the digital space, but how do you think that online harassment spills into offline violence and intimidation?
Online violence, most people, when you look at even on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and all the social media platform, people have to post something. And when people post something, this is what is used to harass them, is used to harm them, is also used to exploit. Because we've seen that most women that have been harassed, like I can see that you've displayed 85% of women who are online have witnessed digital violence against other women. Because we've seen even in the normal GBV, which is a gender-based violence, you have to have a form of connection with your victim. And most of this violence mostly don't come from people who are far away, because people have this impression that violence or GBV, technology facilitated GBV, comes from people who are very far, but it can even come from family members who use that avenue to abuse you, people who impersonate others to also abuse them. And to be honest, like we've said, the issue of implementation, that's where a lot of the issue comes from. Because we as Africans, first of all, I always say that we are not actually ready to be exposed to the huge amount of internet exposure that we have seen lately, even among children, even parenting. Most people have left parenting for the phones and the digital gadgets to do it for them. When kids need attention, we just hand them over to them. And we've seen that now kids turn, all girls, women, seek more attention, validation from the social media platforms. And that has exposed them to the mental health illnesses that we've talked about, either from the pressure they will get from the online space where you need a lot of likes. So I need to post something that will generate a lot of likes, a lot of engagement on my page. And normally, when I post decent things, I won't get the engagement because the algorithm is kind of prepared in a way that it only pushes, it only enables those things that are negative, those things that are against the community standards, so people can engage on those algorithms. And so what do? I tend to now post nude pictures, solicit sexual activities and all that on these platforms. And that will generate now the algorithm, because also the big tech companies want people to always be on their phones. And from my own experience as a former Facebook content moderator, I'll say most of the harassment we've seen, you can see even from the Facebook Messenger, where I can just say, this is my contact, reach out to me. So when they reach out to you, this is already off the social media platforms. But whatever that happens after I've given out my contact to be contacted also can be traced back to the digital platform, because now I can arrange a meetup. I can arrange whatever pictures that you've sent to me, if they are private pictures. Now I can start extorting you, which is what we call sextortions, because now I can tell you, I've seen those you're connected with, because even most of the social media platform, you can see the friends, the people you usually tag in your post. I will definitely reach out to them with your photos. So you have to pay me. You have to do that. We've seen cases of suicide also being done just because of the interactions that happen on social media platforms and the digital spaces. So a lot of attention as parents of girls and also as women should be drawn to this particular issue. You shouldn't allow your kids to be on this social media platform, especially girls, unsupervised and also at a certain age where you know that this child has fully understood the harms that comes from these social media platforms. And also when it comes to depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and all other mental health illnesses that usually comes from the engagement that comes on the social media platforms, and also the pressure. Seek mental health support. I always say that seek mental health support, seek therapy. Family therapists are available, marriage and family therapists are available, because when the family also is like functioned, there's a lot of abuse, physical abuse also in the home, where women are being beaten, women are being harassed and all that. It reflects also on the girl child. Now the girl child wants to seek validation out there. So they begin to text random people. They begin to respond to random friend requests from random people. And another issue is the big tech companies, when it comes to the African use that we use on the African continent, is there's no form of regulation. The regulations and the laws are very outdated, and there's no enforcement. Even the ones that are there, we've seen that there's no enforcement. And we talk about even the police, where you go to report those cases, you will be harassed right there while reporting these cases, especially when you meet the other gender or the male gender in the reporting desk. Because the first thing is, what happened? Okay, this person did 1, 2, 3 to me. The next is, okay, you didn't dress well. You were not dressed properly. You were the one responding to his chats. You were the one doing this. So, of course, you will be harassed, and it's okay to be harassed. So you see, it's a kind of a very huge problem. It's a multi-layered issue that really needs to be paid attention to in this African continent, where even from the government down to the least person, to the girl who is 10 years, who is 5 years, who is 2 years, begin to understand, what does it mean to be in these digital spaces? What does it mean to have a phone? What does it also mean to engage with strangers online? Because also the issue of AI, artificial intelligence, the issue of deepfakes. We've seen this recent BBC released a documentation on BBC where you see the ladies who experience the very brutal form of abuse because of these platforms. Are we really prepared for it? As Africans, I would say we are not as prepared as we should be. And we also need to push for this mental health awareness, where people understand that you can get all these mental health illnesses just by engaging with your digital devices. And it's as very important as your physical health. Just like I would have an headache, I'll have a stomach ache. The first thing I'll think of is going to the hospital. Once you see your girl child, a lady around you, a woman, your sibling, whoever, going through a form of withdrawal, some of these mental health illnesses that we see, it should be taken with all seriousness. And it should also not be attributed to spiritual issues. So once we begin to take these things as very important, begin to put the dots together, I'm sure we are going to now push even the government, we're going to push all these lawmakers to see the importance of putting all these laws into places. We've seen Australia recently have banned children on the 16 from using 16 or 13 from using the digital social media spaces, which is very important. And that is what we need also on these African spaces, where women and children will be protected from this technology facilitated GBV, which is gender-based violence.
All right. Thank you so much, Kauna. And you made mention of a very salient point, and that is the government and agencies. But then for the government and the agencies to step in, we would need to have a proper understanding of digital violence. But we find that many African legal systems still struggle to define digital violence. So let me direct this question at Merlize. Why do you think that, I mean, this has been going on for years, for as long as the digital space has, existed, and it's not just a 2 or 3 year thing. So why is this gap so persistent? Why do we keep talking about the fact that we can't even properly define what digital violence is? Some people go off the hook because there's no legal structure that is binding.
A lot of African countries, including South Africa, has a Cybercrimes Act, right, which criminalizes it. However, the language around what that looks like has not been defined. And I think we understand the definition if we have a one-on-one conversation around it. But when you're going through legal frameworks, because there is no direct description of what revenge porn is or what online harassment looks like, it's very difficult from a legal standpoint to even prosecute. Never mind the fact that, like the lady said before, in the police station, they don't even understand what cybercrimes are. We have a training issue, I think, in most of our countries around cybercrimes, specifically because we do not define very clearly what cybercrimes are from end to end. Then we have the added issue of the fact that it's changing and evolving with the use of AI. Deepfakes is becoming a massive issue right now because AI is becoming less and less detectable. And on most of our social media platforms, it is now integrated into those platforms, which means you can create nude images of absolutely anybody and you won't be tracked down from anywhere in the world. It's making it very impossible for basic law enforcement in South Africa, first, and in Africa, because we don't understand it, we don't have the tools on how to track it. There is no way to identify who someone who is creating these images. It's very difficult to track who they are and where they are because they can do it anywhere in the world. I think with AI, what we're starting to see in the world is that the guardrails that we had up are now have completely fallen away. We've moved into a technology age where we don't even know what this is going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years. Rightly so, which is why Australia decided to prevent young kids from having access to social media, because we can't stop the acceleration of this, which is making cybercrime, cyberbullying, revenge porn, sharing nude images digitally it's increasing exponentially. So I think the issue comes right down to the language and understanding what that definition means and what that might look like in the next next 5 to 10 years from an AI standpoint, and then having meaningful conversations within our governments and law enforcement about how to prosecute these things, right? And how to even open cases, because the initial issue is walking into the police station and opening a case because you're being bullied online or someone is trying to share or create AI images of you. How do you, number one, speak to the online platform like TikTok or Facebook to get that removed? Because most people can get around those rules now. And how do you then ensure that that doesn't happen again? Language is also changing so much with Gen Zs and Gen Alphas that I don't think the social media platforms are catching up fast enough. Because now, for instance, on TikTok, they have this thing where if you say the word rape, the video can be taken down, but now we're saying the word grape. It's very easy to get around the seemingly the guidelines that seemingly are there to prevent any of these things from happening, but they're not working and happening fast enough. Like one of the ladies said earlier, this is a multi-layered issue, but if it starts with the language and the definition down to the letter, we may have more direction on how to get these cases heard and how to even get the initial cases open. That helps victims feel seen, number one, and also help them fully understand how they were victimized, because a lot of the time the young girls don't even know how they're being victimized in these situations. By the time they realize it's happened, they've already been extorted for thousands and thousands of dollars worth of money they don't even have just to get images taken offline, which we know is not actually going to happen.
Very salient point you have mentioned there, Merlize. Thank you so much. Let me direct the next question at Monsurat. How effective would we say that the existing cybercrime or harassment laws are in protecting women? Are they even in existence at all?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. How effective is the law? Sincerely, I don't even think there's any law binding to stopping all of these crimes. Because if there was in the first place, it wouldn't be so severe as what we are facing today. There's actually no law. And I think it is high time we tend to bring this law and make it more serious, because most of our young girls are actually suffering. Apart from our women that are our public faces, women that actually, have this, that's already, that, I'm so sorry, apart from the women with the status quo that already threaten them, that they try to silence, it is important that we create more awareness. If there's a way, maybe we have a platform where women or young girls can always, that they'll get swift and quick response once they reply, or once they find out, or if they realize something of such is about happening to them. If it is possible for us to create maybe a safe space, a social media platform, or even if it is a women association, something that would just help them. Because for me, I do not think there's even any awareness behind this. And most people are being bullied and they just end up being silenced. That's it for me. There's actually no awareness enough.
All right. Kauna, elections seem to be flashpoints for online abuse. So when we talk about elections, campaigns, manifestos, we can almost always guarantee that we will get some of these online abusers resurfacing. What is the connection between digital violence and democracy, especially when we have women in power or intending to be in power?
Thank you. I think when it comes to the digital violence and democracy, I think what I have to say is mostly is embedded in how the African culture is, where a woman is supposed to be at the back end. A woman is not supposed to lead. A woman. So we're still in that era where, in as much as we say, okay, the feminism spaces where we talk about equity and all that, we see that women continually are being seen as a sex object, are being seen as as just people who should be at the back. And that is most of the reason why we see even the female politicians are always getting harassed when it's because that is the tool that they see even their fellow counterparts, which is the men, can easily relate to it. So we hear things like that would be a prostitute and all that. That is always a narrative around female politicians, especially when politics is close by. They begin to dig. Is she married? Is she single? She's a single mother. And all this has been used as a weapon against female politicians, creating and perpetrating a lot of digital harms against contestants or people, women who are in politics. And what I have to say is still the issue around awareness. Do these women, when did they even know that I am now in a space where I am being harassed or harmed digitally, and it's a violence and it's a crime? I need to report it. Who am I reporting it to? So I loved what my colleague here from my co-speaker from South Africa just said, is from even the point of reporting, how do I even know that now I need to report this is a crime? So we really need to put out all these things out there for women. I think there's a lot of training that needs to be done when it comes to even the security personnel to understand what we're talking about, because we have those laws most of the time. It's there. Maybe the language, maybe the way it's written, maybe the year it's written also, because each and every day the digital space is evolving. And so we have to pay attention and also amend our laws to really fit the situation as it may be. But unfortunately, we as the citizens of these countries are not even aware that there is that law that protects us, and there's a gap, and we need to raise our voices and be like, okay, this is the law, but this is the gaps. And we can also provide data, because without data, we can just be talking, and the first thing, lawmakers will tell you is, from where are you quoting this? For example, I say 1 million girls in Nigeria are being harassed daily. Where do we get the data from? And unfortunately, we can't get the data because a lot of our African culture and all that has made us to see the victim becomes ashamed rather than the perpetrator being ashamed. Because if I, as a victim, cannot walk boldly into a police station and be like, this is what happened to me on a social media platform, someone leaked my nude video as a woman without being insulted or harassed right there in the police station, that, okay, why did you even share your nude photo? It's always about, why did you do that? You are the one who caused that. Then people will not be able, women, girls will not be able to come out and even report these cases. And without these cases being documented and reported, then we don't have data to really quote and see how it's escalating, how exponentially high these issues are going. So without all this, so we can see how I said it's a multi-layered issue. It starts first from reporting, because when you report, then it's documented. And then in a span of months, 6 months, we can know 1,000, 10,000, 1 million women or girls or politicians reported a form of digital violence to the stations. We're able to compile this, and then we can reach out to the lawmakers and be like, okay, this is the data. What are we doing about it? And these are the issues. These are the gaps that we have in our laws that needs amendment. So I think a lot of work needs to be done, even as citizens and also on both ends. But I think most of the issue comes from reporting and also the places to be reported to, because I won't love to be re-traumatized, my issues be traumatizing again to state my stories to. Most of the time are men. As a woman, I'm going through this. I need to go to a police station and speak to a man about this issue. Or when I'm speaking to a woman, she also needs to speak to a man. So there's no safe space for even these victims, the girls and women, to really report this. And where now the issue of democracy comes in, because without this, then justice can never be served. If I don't even have money to push my case as a woman, then my case just dies off. It takes 10 years for my case to really be treated as urgent. Then other women will be like, okay, A reported it 5 years ago, 2 years ago, nothing was done. Instead, she was being shamed, and whatever happened to her was used, like as an example or used also to blame her. Why did you share that? Why did you do that? So the victim blaming also is one of the major issues that we've seen even in therapy cases, where these girls will come to you and tell you, okay, I tried to do this and this is what happened. Even in the family setting, I cannot open up to my parents and tell them I'm being exploited, because the first thing is, why did you do that? Okay, it's your fault, or you're a child of God, you shouldn't do that. All these small things we call small, or kind of the African culture where everything needs to be within. The woman should be always the one to be feeling ashamed, regardless, where two people maybe would be a man and a woman, but the woman will be blamed for whatever that goes wrong. Then a lot needs to be done for us to really see that we all play a role and a part in this. And also the bystanders. We have the bystanders, I say, they're usually even the worst in the situation, because you are there just looking, watching, sharing, commenting, putting it in WhatsApp groups, because especially in WhatsApp, where we don't have moderations. There's no moderation enough on WhatsApp. I can share the same video for 10 years on WhatsApp and it never stops, because there's no moderation, unlike the public spaces. So the victims, the girls and the women who are going through this, the politicians who have all their data out there, it keeps going round and round and round, and there's actually no form of perpetrator effect, where these perpetrators know that this is the consequences, this is what I will go through, but rather they are being praised for the crimes that they do against the victim, and the victim should be ashamed for being in that situation.
All right, thank you so much, Kauna, for that. We're still talking about digital abuse, basically, and we've been having an extensive conversation with my amazing guests with us. We will be going on a short break, but remember, this is Fafanua Afrika, and we're talking about something very pivotal. Gone are the days when abuse and violence stops offline. Right now, we now have online violence, and that is what we're talking about. So hang around. In case you're just joining us, this is Fafanua Afrika, the show that spotlights the youth across the African continent, their challenges, their opportunities, and how to prefer solutions to some of these challenges that they face. Now, the first half of this conversation basically focused on digital, violence, and we are continuing this conversation because it's a very important one. And we did mention that gone are the days when people get attacked offline. And now we have a lot of digital abuse, digital stalking, and also gender-based violence on the digital space. And today we're talking about how women seem to be attacked, especially women in power or in very important positions. And I still have my guests with me who have been doing justice to this conversation. Thank you, ladies, for still being here. Let me come now to Merlize, and let's talk about the responsibility of these tech platforms. What do you think the responsibilities are, and where are they currently falling short? Now, when we talk about the digital platforms, we talk about some of these social media apps, for example, and then we did establish earlier that sometimes on some of the apps you can't say some things, you get blocked or you get sanctioned, but now it's like they just let things fly. So where do you think they're falling short, and what are their responsibilities in all of this?
I think there's a few things that they are currently trying to do that has become more and more difficult to implement. So for instance, TikTok at the moment is working with governments and civil society on safety campaigns. They do also have a program for NPOs like ours, for instance, to get assistance if there is online harassment, because our Women for Change has specifically faced a lot of backlash since the shutdown online, and a lot of harassment, right? So they have entire programs set apart for NGOs for things like that. But I think they need to have a system that is designed around safety. So when we're talking about building safety into the code, product decisions, and not treating it like the fix after the harm situation, right? The after the fact. Because that's how we deal with this in every area. At least on a digital platform, they have the insights in order to prevent that ahead of time. Then we need accessible reporting tools. I don't know if you've ever reported something on social media, but the likelihood that it's going to be taken down or you're going to get a response is really low because you're dealing with a bot. You're not dealing with a person. At any point, if you want to get into contact with a person, that is almost next to impossible, even for someone who has accessibility to the higher ups. Then we have the transparency reporting. Platforms should publicly share their data on takedown rates, on what abuse online looks like, but they don't share any of that data. So we don't have a realistic look of what is going on. Then local partnerships with organizations that deal with gender-based violence, that deal with abuse, that deal with educating men on abuse. There needs to be serious relationships built up because we see how this affects young girls and women in our country. So, and every day we are creating new solutions because the solutions don't exist on the ground. We are the best people to do those partnerships with because we can help them implement preventative frameworks in the system. And then there's age-appropriate protections, I think, which we spoke about earlier, where we're minimizing access to young children, preferably those under the age of 15 and 16, from accessing certain things online. The unfortunate thing, I think, is that there are new social media platforms popping up all over the place, right? We have platforms now that you can pay for. We're talking about things like OnlyFans, where you can lie about your age. You're not expected to send your ID to verify your age on platforms like that. And young girls are using that platform to generate money with nude images. Platforms like that are difficult to regulate because there are no actual regulations in place for when these platforms come about. So I think there's quite a few things that need to be done. And for the most part, we're having more conversations about it, but we're not seeing anything happen on the ground. And every day we're having to deal with a new version of the either online abuse, harassment, or pornography that is being distributed online.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Merlize. Monsurat, for survivors and those who are currently even going through some of these the attacks, basically the menace, what support systems exist or should exist, and where do they fail most of the time? Because there are people who go through this, and unfortunately it seems as though the society does not yet recognize that this is a very serious issue. We're going to wait till we get Monsurat, but in the meantime, let me come to Kauna. The society seems not to recognize that this is a very serious issue, and people can be, stigmatized and even scarred by some of these things that happen on the digital space. So, for the survivors, what support systems exist or should exist, and where do they fall short?
I think, first, when it comes to women, girls, politicians, and all the activists and advocates that we've seen who have experienced online violence, is first of all understand the platforms that you are working on. Because one of the things that I know is we engage on those platforms and we don't even read what the community guidelines, we don't even need the terms and all that. We just get into it, provide our data, and then we're exposed to so much harm. Like I said earlier, I worked for Facebook for 4 years as a Facebook content moderator, moderating contents from the back end. And one thing that I know is, even for women politicians, I used to tell them, have you really read the community standards? Because it doesn't really protect you. Because as a public figure, there are a lot of harms that it just goes, because it's already clearly stated, as a public figure, you can be abused to a certain extent because you put yourself out there, and you can't, in quote, you can't be abused based on those things. But they tell you, oh, I didn't read that. So I think first is even understanding the platforms that you are on. How best does it protect you as an individual? Does it allow people to say certain things about you? And the platform says, oh, there are different, I always tell people, there are different even policies that protects public figures and normal individual people. So the policies are not the same, the protections are not the same. Understand them. And another thing also, just as an individual, to take care of yourself. Am I really prepared to be on this platform? How much can I give? And also, to what extent do I know I'm going overboard and I can be in harm's way? And when these harms happen, what do I do? Do I have a reporting platform where I can report these issues? And like just my colleague have said, you can report those things on those platforms, but we have billions of backlog contents that have been reported that content moderators, human content moderators, are not there to moderate them. In a center, even for TikTok right now in Africa, the ones that I know, we have less than 300 content moderators moderating contents just for African users. So you can imagine, while working, you also train the AI system. So you can imagine using people to train AI systems that will protect the users. So there will definitely be a lot of issues. So as Africans, I would say the big tech companies don't really have what it takes to protect even their users on these spaces. So of course, take care of yourself while using these platforms. If you really want to use them reasonably, and also seek help when you realize that this have really taken a huge mental health, even if it's a little mental health toll on you. You're losing your sleep, you're getting anxious when your phone beeps, you are just anxious, you want to check, am I being bullied, am I being stalked, and all that. Seek help. Seek mental health support. There are therapy sessions for people going through social media anxieties, because it's also a form of anxiety. You're going through depression, you've been bullied, harassed on social media platforms, you've been stalked, you've been harmed. Seek help, seek support. There's no shame in seeking support. Do reach out to any psychologists, therapists around you to get the support that you need so that you can be able to know how to navigate through this form of challenge. And also from the government side, I think, and also from people who have the lawmakers, we really need to work on our laws to make it up to date, to really see the gaps, and there should be proper reporting channels where we can have the data. Data is really important. Data is what we need to make a difference. And even when we are meeting all these companies, social media companies or big tech companies coming into Africa with their apps and all that, we can pull out data and be like, okay, 1 million contents have been reported, abuse have happened, only 10 have been attended to, 10 have been taken down, or 10 have been deleted. What's happening to the rest? What kind of compensation? I love what the South African lady from Women for Change just said. There should be also a form of compensation for those who have experienced digital violence on this platform, so that they can also get the help that they need. Therapy is expensive, we know. Getting the help, even the police and all this, I need to have some finances to go through all these processes. I need to have a form of support, and also building a support system. Even as African women, there's a need all across Africa. We have someone from South Africa here, from Kenya, Nigeria, and all these African countries, to really raise our voices as advocates, as people who are leading in whatever field that we are, to raise our voices and attention to this particular issue, and also to provide safe spaces for women where they can open up and get the support. Because most of the time, I want to report this issue, but I don't have anybody to guide me through it. I might be an illiterate. I've never gone to school. I don't even know what does it mean when it comes to my right and all these things. So we need to invest a lot of our time, even as individuals, as advocates and leaders in our different folds as women, to see how can we support other women not to be a victim, and even those who have been a victim to have a soft landing where they have other women who can stand with them, who can speak on their behalf if they are unable to.
All right. Thank you so much, Kauna. Okay, let me quickly get Merlize. We're running out of time, but one more question for Merlize before we go. Now, with the 16 days of activism now over, how do we then sustain the momentum beyond annual campaigns? Because it's okay to say that, this 16 days, we're going to raise the flag, we're going to talk about it endlessly and more meticulously. But at the end of it, when the campaign is over, when all of the activity is over, how do we sustain the momentum to create more awareness and continue with the efforts?
As a whole, we have this culture of conversation. We talk, We talk a lot. And I think the unfortunate part about that is no matter how much we talk, it's very difficult to see that translated to the ground. We actually need to become the people who are acting on conversation, right? We already see in social media spaces, for instance, there are a lot of youth innovators who are already coding solutions. Why are we not using those solutions? We need to be speaking to the youth more about what's happening in the digital space and what they are innovating so that we know how to implement that into the social media space from an Africa's perspective. Then if we talk about civil society groups, we are turning lived experiences into policy wins, and we're trying to do that as much as we can, but how can we push for that? If you would have noted on the 21st of November with our shutdown, we were able to get gender-based violence declared a national disaster in South Africa. It sounds great when you say it, but what does that look like from an implementation standpoint? The conversations that we're currently having with the government is around how they can use the organizations on the ground and the solutions that they have created and then implement that, because now there's going to be resources opened and we can't go back to the status quo, promises without action, right? Then we have online reporting tools and data dashboards that need to be mapped out correctly. I understand why social media platforms focus on the business aspect of the design. The problem with that is they forget how much new types of abuse and new types of harassment are created when they aren't starting from protection first. So there are quite a few things that I think we can do. We need to have more of these conversations, but we need to walk into these rooms with strategies and plans on how these things can be implemented today. And like I said, with the shutdown that we created, the Purple Movement, continuing to create events around these conversations to the scale that the shutdown was in South Africa, and I mean, it touched up to Germany, is important. Continuing to have the conversation on that level, because sitting in a room and talking to Parliament about what needs to change has clearly not proven anything. At this point, activism has become a form of standing on a mountaintop and screaming at the person who can listen to you because nobody else is listening, right? And we've proved that in the last couple of years with the work that we do. There's a lot of, I think, let me put it this way. I know that in Africa as a whole, not everybody's able to do the same thing specifically because it's not safe to do that in other regions. But I think we can learn from one another on how to engage in these conversations in a meaningful way that actually gets those who make the decisions and change the policies to really look at the benefits of the solutions that we provide from the ground.
All right, I think that this is a good place to draw the curtain, but I want to say a big thank you to our guests. Let me start by saying thank you in absentia to Adéfoiye Monsurat, data analyst, member of the Hope Makers Network, Lagos, Nigeria, and of course, thank you to Kauna Malgwi, clinical psychologist, CEO, DRMHI in Nairobi, Kenya, and Merlize Jogiath, advocacy and operations coordinator, Women for Change in Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you so much for lending your voices to this very important conversation. And we've established the need to continue beyond the campaign and the 16 days of activism to create awareness, on the very essence of this topic. And we're hoping that the government and even the agencies involved will take this more seriously, including individuals, all over the digital space. That's all for today on Fafanua Africa. Catch up on missed episodes on our YouTube, News Central TV YouTube channel. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV 23, StarTimes channel 274, and Avo TV. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Do want to join us in our subsequent episodes on Fafanua Africa. But till then, have a wonderful rest of your day.